Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying with us and welcome back to Select Talk. For those who have just joined us, I'm seated with Susan. Many of you know her from Vision Group, where she headed the communication and marketing team. And today, no, we're not discussing her life at Vision Group. We're getting away from that to getting to know her as a person, as a human being, as someone you'd meet in the streets and say hi to. And one thing we've noted is that she's very down to earth and she's openly telling us her experience from the time that they went to Nairobi in exile, and then they came back to Uganda. She did university in Uganda and later started working. Mind you, her work started in university, and then later, after university, she continued working. You've shared your success story with us. You've shared how you got to where you were, not by the name of your parents and your grandparents, but out of hard work and making sure that when a task is given, you complete it. And for me, that is important message to the women and girls out there, because when we feel sorry for ourselves, I'm a woman, I'm a girl, and my boss needs to feel, give me a certain table of speciality aside from the men, then you're breaking yourself. Now, what I need you to do is look straight in the camera and give a piece of advice to girls who are just graduating from university amidst the COVID-19 crisis, amidst the crisis of not having too many jobs right now. What is the advice that you'd give them?
That's an interesting one, because obviously the times are very different now. When we finished university, there were jobs, although even then we had to look for the jobs. We had to look for the jobs. We had to look for where the opportunities were. And my advice that I would give you is really to just start with yourself and ask yourself, who am I and where do I want to go? With hindsight, I can look back and say, you need to find your purpose in life. Once you discover your purpose early on, a lot of the things become noise. A lot of the things that would distract you become noise. Right now, we have people who are building their careers more on what they post on social media and, their profiles on social media, and a lot of things which, even this is advice I give my daughter. I always tell her that a good name is better than anything else you can ever do for yourself. Focus on your name. What do you want to be known for? And then based on that, a lot of the decisions that you make on a day-to-day basis will be around that, a good name, building a good name for yourself.
Okay, thank you so much. Very good advice indeed. I like where you brought in the social media aspect, because that is what is happening as we speak.
Absolutely,
everybody wants to be on social media. And the problem is the kind of popularity they have on social media is not best out of merit. It's best out of how are you dressed, where are you going to, where are you taking the pictures at. So that's a very interesting conversation. Now, coming back to you, after 8 years with Vision, what are some of the lessons that you learned? And then why did you decide to leave Vision finally and start your own?
Okay. And so I did 8 years. I was given a mandate for what I was expected to do in those the first maybe 3 to 4 years, which I did. And then I just kept on creating more responsibilities for myself to stay relevant, because sometimes you need to do that. Sometimes some of us work ourselves out of jobs because we do only what we're being told to do. But God has gifted me with that special ability to create relevance for myself. So what I did was to create relevance for myself. I kept on expanding my job description, from what it started with to what I ended with were totally different things. So I kept on accepting new responsibilities, taking on new challenges, and so staying relevant. And so why I decided to leave is that I felt I had done everything that I could do for the company. And I needed to hand over to somebody else who could perhaps take the company to new levels of growth, but I had done everything plus more that I could do. And I felt then that I could now take every experience that I've had, not only just at Vision Group, but all my working experience, and I could take that and now use that energy and that strength to build my own company. So So that's why I felt it was time for me to hang up my boots and let's go start. So the company that that I run with a business partner is called Urge Uganda. So still in the same field of marketing and communications, but now working with different companies, different organizations, different business owners, and just helping them solve their marketing and their communication challenges. So that's what I'm doing now. So what are some of the lessons that I learned at Vision Group? At Vision Group, I led, because I'd been a manager before, obviously, whether I was at MTN, DFCU, but at Vision Group, I had, what I want to say is like, I was given a white slate, a clean slate to build the marketing department. So by the time I left, the department was made up of at least 30 people, yeah, that's like a company of its own.
So you headed 30 people.
Yes, and I learned a lot just about managing people, their temperaments, playing to people's strengths, bringing the best out of people. I learned that at Vision Group, just in managing such a big team of people. That's one of the things that I learned. The other thing that I learned is the issue I told about credibility, building credibility, who you are, and just managing yourself. I learned how to manage myself, as I learned the whole aspect of, which is part of managing self, is leadership. My leadership skills were really honed at Vision, because it was a big role, it's a big company, so my leadership skills were really honed and refined at Vision Group. I also learned, as part of that, what my key strengths are. I became very self-aware when I was there in terms of my abilities, my key strengths, and how to play them. And in playing them, I downplay my weaknesses. You understand? I use my strengths to downplay my weaknesses. So you'll never ever really find me talking about weaknesses and challenges and whatever, because everybody goes through that. The key things is, what have I succeeded at? What am I good at? What can I get better at? Of course, there are areas of improvement. Everybody's got areas of improvement, but you will never find me in a pity party, saying, oh, bab, whining. This is hard. You absolutely not, because then I'm not approaching life with the appreciation that I should have for it. Now, this is what I'm going to say, because a major turning point in my life is the incident that I referred to you earlier in 2001. 2001, when I developed the complication with my digestive system, I actually was on the brink of death. I was this close. It's just a nurse, and this was a major turning point in my life, because the nurse who was on duty that night at IHK there was a male nurse who was on duty, and they had the option to save either me or another patient who was an 80-year-old, and because we both went critical at the same time, and he was the only one on duty. And he had to decide, if I go to the nurse, that 80-year-old priest, or if whoever I go to is the one who's going to live. And at that point in time, he made the choice to come to my bed and call the doctors to help me, because all the doctors were home. And of course, the 80-year-old priest died. But because he made that choice, at that point in time, I then decided that, you know what, life, when he told me that story many years later, he looked for me like on Facebook. After that, he gave up nursing. He gave up nursing because he realized, life was actually in his hands.
I have goosebumps on my body listening to that story.
He gave up nursing. So he reached out to me on Facebook many years later, and he told me the story. And I literally, I was at the office in the computer. You know how you're in the computer and Facebook and Messenger, someone reaches out to you, and I literally just cried my heart out. I didn't know I was that close, and that it was one man's decision. Otherwise, I would not be here today. So because of that, I then realized that I've got to take life by the horns. I've got to take life by the horns. Every single day is a blessing. Every single day is a blessing. I've got to give every single day my best shot. Every day I wake up, I've got to show up. I've got to show up like life is my stage. You understand? I've got to show up. I've got to perform. So because of that, I give my best every single day.
Okay.
Even if you give me a 5-minute interview, trust me,
You'll make the best.
I'll make the best out of it, because I don't get a second chance to do this. Like, I'm not going to get a second chance to do this.
I mean, you already got a second chance in life. How many people get that kind of second
Absolutely.
chance in life?
Absolutely.
Incredible story.
Yeah.
And if,
So
if that doesn't shape anyone, then it won't shape you. And nothing after that will
That
ever
shaped
shape
me.
you.
So sometimes I meet people and I tell them, you know, life is short.
Yes.
Like, no, you're being negative. I'm like, no, I know that life is short.
Yeah.
I've experienced it. Life is short. I've got to give it my best.
Okay.
I've got to give it my best shot. Whatever shot you give me whatever shot you give me, I gotta give it my best. And I think, I'm not saying I don't make mistakes. I'm not saying I don't fail. I'm not saying I don't have challenges.
Yes.
Everybody's got that. But bottom line is, I've got to show up. And that is the advice I give people I talk to, I mentor, because I talk to a lot of young people, I talk to a lot of young women. Those are my daily conversations with my daughter.
Okay.
I tell her, the greatest responsibility you have, it's not even about your success as a student. The greatest responsibility you have right now is that you're my daughter.
Okay.
And because you're my daughter, every time you say that I'm your mother, there's a certain expectation of you. And that expectation of you, unfortunately, is nothing less than excellence.
Okay.
And of course, it puts pressure on her. And sometimes, but I hope that one day she's going to appreciate that she had this great African woman as her mother, and she's just going to show up, because nobody's going to make room for her. She's got to show up.
Make it for herself.
She's got to show up.
Well, I like that. I hope a number of women who are watching us at this moment are learning a number of lessons from
Yeah.
your life story,
Yeah.
because it is worth learning from.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, talking about your future aspirations, you said Vision Group honed
Yeah.
your leadership skills.
Yeah, yeah.
Are we looking at you taking a political position? I know you've said no to that before, but I'm asking it again. Are we looking at you taking a political position one of these days?
You know, what I've decided is that I can influence in so many different
Okay.
ways. When I say I'm a great African, it doesn't mean that I am a politician. It doesn't mean I'm a great African as a mother, which means I can influence my daughter. If I influence my daughter, that's a whole generation influence. If I influence my nieces and my nephews, that's a whole generation.
Definitely.
Those are whole generations that are influenced. If I influence companies like at board level, you know, and so I like when I get opportunities to serve on at boards, I can do that, because then I know I'm influencing the destiny of a company. I'm influencing the destiny of thousands of employees as a part of my participation on that board, and I'm still influencing and changing and transforming companies and people at the same time. So what I'm going to say is this, and that I can influence at whatever level I happen to be.
Okay.
Whatever blessing God has given me, I can influence at that level. Politics right now is a very dirty game in Uganda. Politics is not so much about merit, and so it's the waters have really been muddied.
Okay.
If you had asked me that question a few years, like when I was at university, I would have my A-levels, I would have said absolutely yes, politics.
Okay.
Because
Was that your aspiration growing up? Is that what
yes,
you
because,
thought you'd be?
Yes, because I've always had an interest in current affairs.
Okay.
I've always had an interest in making my voice heard. That has never gone away.
Okay.
But as you grow up, you then realize, okay, the situation changes, reality changes,
Yeah.
but I can still make my voice heard on certain issues.
Without being a politician.
Without being a politician. Why? How can I don't need to be a politician to talk about political arrests, injustices in society.
Okay.
I don't need to be a politician to talk about human rights being denied, violations. I don't need to be a politician. I just have to be a human being to see that that's wrong.
What do you think about the political environment right now in Uganda? You've been in current affairs for that long.
Yeah.
Your father faced the other regimes.
Yeah.
And now you're here in the 21st century in
Yeah.
this regime.
Yeah.
What is your view about it?
We're in very dangerous waters. And I fear for our children right now, especially the young ones who are not being able to appreciate politics of dialogue, politics of difference of opinion, that it's okay to have a different opinion and you don't have to go to jail for it. You don't have to lose your life for it. You don't have to... so right now we have children who, where violence has been normalized, blood on the streets has been normalized. And that has a way it affects our children growing up. Because then it becomes normal for me to, for people to murder their wives. Domestic violence becomes normal because we're seeing the violence meted out every day on the streets. So that for me is very, very sad, because one of my nieces asked and said, but are we ever going to see anything different? She's 11. And she was asking, are we ever going to see anything different? Because the past couple of years, you imagine if the political, for us, because the cycle is 5 years. So the past 5 years, what they see is, in fact, from when you look at, from when, say, FDC came up, you know, the beatings, the brutality, 11 years, that's all they've known. So violence becomes normalized in their brains.
That's
it
a
becomes
very deep question and
very-
conversation with an
with an
11-year-old.
11-year-old. And these are conversations they're having with their schoolmates. Do you understand? In terms of, so I would say we are in dangerous territory, and we've changed we've plucked away the innocence of childhood forever. And our children then, if at my age, I'm like, these are things that we saw when we were children. And then it unfortunately, then it forms the narrative going forward. History keeps repeating itself.
Do you think the media is giving a good narrative? Is it showing what it ought to show, or we need to change the narrative as media?
Right now, I think media is telling the story as it is. To be quite honest, I don't think media is asking enough questions. And because in some countries, media can influence the narrative simply by, by telling the stories. Right now, I know there's a lot of censorship. There's a lot of censorship in the newsrooms. So people, even when they have the stories, they can't tell them for fear of, because I think even violence against journalists, as we've seen it, we had to say stop brutality against journalists because they're simply doing their job. And so I would really say that we're really treading dangerous waters. And for me, it is sad for the generations to come, because at some point you would have thought Uganda is now taking another trajectory. It is now following another path. But unfortunately, history has proven that no, we're still, when you see now people fleeing the country because of fear of their lives, that's what happened to us when we were children. We had to flee because of the politics of the day. So when you see it coming full circle several years later, then you're thinking, as a country, we really need to have that discussion. How do we change the trajectory? How do we change the future for our children? Because now for us, it's come full circle. You understand? It's come full circle. What can we do so that our children can see something different? When you drive past, and because I'm using that route quite daily, and because recently I'm also trying to renew my passport, when you go to the immigration and you see those young people, the number of people who have decided, my future is not in Uganda. Voluntarily, I am going to go and I'm going to work as a domestic servant in another country. I don't know if I'm going to come back, if I'll ever come back. The sheer number of young people who have decided that they don't have a future in Uganda, for me, that is telling of where we are as a nation.
Whew, that's a very heavy last conversation. Let's wind it up. Let's wind up this talk, of course, with something a little bit not as heavy, because we've been talking bloodshed, we've been talking this future generation and not knowing what the future will be like. I would like to continue with this talk, but I want us to less it down a little bit to your hobbies. I'm breathing hard myself with the conversation that we've just had. Let's cut it down a little bit now to your hobbies. What do you like doing when you're stressed? How do you shed off the stress? How do you spend your time?
Well, one of the things is I enjoy my company. My company as Susan. I like spending time with myself. But I also like outdoor activity. I like nature. I do, like I said, I do sports. watching it and participating in it, working up a sweat, obviously, is very fulfilling in terms of that adrenaline. Reading, listening to music. I'm not too much into TV and movies anymore, just simply because there's always so much to do. And so maybe I can afford maybe 1 hour a week or something like that. I used to be into football a lot, but I just don't have the time to watch. Now I just catch up on the results. I just don't have the time anymore.
Look at you, a woman who's interested in football.
Absolutely.
Manchester United. Not too many.
No, Manchester United is my team.
Every woman supports Manchester United. I support Manchester United.
And I've been a supporter for many years, like decades of supporting Manchester United. And so, reading, catching up with friends. But yeah, there's always so much to do. My day is full. My day, every single day of my life is full. And of course, right now, I like to do things that will grow my business as well. I'm part of Business Networking International, which is just a group of business owners like myself, where we meet regularly just to grow our business. We support each other's business to grow. So that takes up my time as well, and I've served on their leadership teams as well. And then, of course, so I have a lot. I'm a church girl. I'm a church girl, so I spend a lot of time doing churchy things. Yeah.
Well,
so
that's
good
my free
to know.
time. I'm glad to know that religion is part of who you are.
Absolutely.
And how do you manage to balance all this? Having fun, listening to music, sports, being a mother, being a business owner. How do you manage all that?
One of the things that I learned, which I think was part of my part of the question, one of the things that I learned when I was at Vision Group, I did a leadership course, and then I became a facilitator for that course, which is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yes.
And so I learned how to prioritize my time and the things that I need to do based on what I want my life to be. So because of that, I'm able to fit everything in. Able to fit everything in. It made me a better daughter because I prioritize time for my parents, a better mother, a better auntie, really based on the roles that I have to play. But then also a better me, because I must spend time on me as well, on things that build my mind, things that build my spirit, things that build my body. And then of course now I'm a business leader, I'm a board member. So for each and every one of the roles that I have, I prioritize the time in my week based on what I must do in that particular role. And then that just means that I have time for everything. I may not, like now this week, for example, my daughter is in boarding school. So I have nothing to do for her this week. So, but then the other things that I can do this. So what I'm trying to say is that I have learned how to manage my time as opposed to my time managing me.
Well, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of this conversation, very insightful information from Susan. And of course, we say here on this show that every footprint, every fingerprint is different. And for you to know what the journey of this person who we're hosting on the show is, tune in and join us in this conversation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, for you who has been wondering what is this beautiful environment that Latifa has shot her show at, that is Latitude, that is located in Much India, one of the beautiful serene places that if you wanted to relax your mind and get to chill out with friends like Susan does during her free time, this is the place for you. So take your time, relax, and make sure that even when you're working, you get free time to relax yourself. Remember, work without play makes Susan and Latifa very dull people. See you next time.